Hello everybody and welcome back to the Line Ball Pool channel. My name is Max and today this is the video you've all been waiting for. The eagerly anticipated sequel to the stats video of the Vanguard Invitational Line Ball tournament. This is a tournament where three of the players, Alex, Ardit and Hoy, put together a statistics project looking into the detail of the tournament, finding out very interesting statistics and information pieces about all aspects of the first ever line ball pool tournament. If you don't know how to play line ball, go on the channel, check out a video or two on how to play. We've got some good videos coming out at the minute which explain all the rules so you're clued up with line ball. We'll link them in the description as well so you can get clued up on how to play. And then once you watch the tournament, come here, watch this video, let's learn together how the Vanguard Invitational was captured through statistics. First person we will be speaking to is the mastermind behind the documents that were put together that tracked the statistics for the tournament. So we'll be speaking to Hoy Yinlai. We're heading over to our knockouts Excel graphic. Hoy, how are you doing today?
Thank you, Max. I'm doing very well, thank you.
Lovely. Well, thank you for being a part of this project, Hoy. You've put a lot of great work into this. And before we dive into what you've done for this, because you weren't in the last video, the first part we didn't get to know a bit about you. So tell us about what is your sort of specialisms within data collection and statistics, and what sort of drove you in this project.
Well, I myself am working in data, looking to pursue a career further into data analytics as it is. So building this sort of dashboarding and reports where I track all this kind of data is what I do on a day-to-day basis, really, and it's something that I really do enjoy doing. And as a fan, as the first ever fan of Line Ball Pool, it fit in quite nicely, you know. Max, you asked me to help out with this, and I was happy to help out. This is something that I very much enjoyed creating and tracking.
Lovely. Yeah, it really comes across in how you've presented it as well, because this document we're looking at here, which shows, individual statistics and shots that each of the players played for Team Alice, breaking down into specific games as well, and then going here through the legal shots, illegal shots. In detail, we went over in the last video this document for the group stages of the tournament. So we've already covered it. We won't go into it in huge detail. But Hoy, from your perspective, can you tell us what it was like to build this whole document system you've got here?
Well, it wasn't easy. I think it was deciding on the layout of it was probably the hardest part. When we first started tracking this, it was still very early stages for Line Ball Pool, so we had to go through a lot of changes throughout, like trying to figure out the exact definition of each KPI that we're tracking, the shots, because when we were looking and reviewing the footage to take down which shot it was, there'll be some shots that we'd be quite unsure about. But once we got everything set out, then I could begin building this whole dashboard.
Absolutely. As we can see here, we've got all of the different definitions, the links to the codes and all the information, and it presents really nicely, especially with the players and the teams. And then you can go through each team. Here we had for the knockout stages, going through all the different information about them and breaking down how individual players did with all the different statistics, and going down into tracking each. So I'm seeing a lot of noughts and ones. I know we went through a little bit of it in the last video, but Hoy, just briefly from you, why was this the sort of best way for you to track how shots were done in the tournament?
The idea was that each individual shot would be selected for whatever shot it would be, but we weren't actually sure how to collect it. So my idea was either to make it as simple as possible. It's a yes or no system, so ones or zeros in this case as well. So it's either it is that shot, or it isn't. So I didn't want to overcomplicate anything. So when we eventually put it all into one massive data set, it'd be a lot easier to read.
And building this whole document, was there anything, because I know you have a lot of experience in this field anyway and you were applying a lot of that to line ball, was there anything you specifically learned from building this that sort of surprised you, or was something you didn't know that you learned because of this process?
I think one of the major things was figuring out how crazy you can get with data validations in this, because we had a lot of lists that we're going through. The players, the teams, and whether it's like a yes or no. I had a lot of fun trying to figure out what other ways I could use data validation in Excel. And I learned a lot, and it did help out a lot with this document when creating it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for that, Hoy. That is brilliant. That gives us a really nice insight into this aspect of the video, breaking down the document that was used by Alex and Ardit to collect all the data for the tournament. And then Alex and Ardit collected all of the information and then went on to begin presenting it. So we're next going to speak to Alex. We're going to head back to this lovely graphic we saw at the start of the video to just break down visualizing some of the statistics. So Alex has put together just a series of some key bits of information here. So Alex, could you just remind everyone who may not have seen the last video a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, of course. I'm Alex, and I work in data myself as well, as Hoy. And I work specifically more in pensions data, so lots of finance and age statistics, stuff like that. So a different data set to what I've been given here, but definitely lends a hand in terms of the analytical mindset of thinking, oh, how do we make sure that something is accurate? How do we look at the different areas and compare the two if they are comparable? So yeah, that's where I'm from and how this has helped me make this.
And I know that Alex, in the last video we talked a lot about collecting the data for the group stages and visualizing it, so we won't go into that in too much more detail in terms of that previous document. If anyone wants to see that in more depth, go back and watch the first video. We'll put a link to it in the description. But building this looks like quite a complicated document to me, so tell me about how you even made this.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not going to take all the credit for the actual data cleansing part, because obviously, as you saw, the last document we had made by Hoy was amazing. Like, we'd already set it up in a way that it made it easier to make into one large data set, but Ardit will probably explain more about what he did to make it into this one data set that you could put into softwares like what I used here, Looker Studio, or what Ardit will use, Tableau. And in those softwares, they have lots of different amazing tools that allow you to visualize your data. And I've got some bar charts here and some pie graphs and just some static data grabs here. But I just thought I'd give a little screenshot of what the tournament was all about, just something that people can see visually, which would be nice.
Yeah, I'm noticing here quite a big sort of disparity on legal to illegal shots at the top here, which obviously within line ball you'd expect. If you know the rules of line ball and you're watching this video, obviously a legal shot is anything that doesn't pot in the scoring zone or hit the black ball. And it surprises me some of the sort of higher sort of graphs here, like oh, that's you, Alex, with a nice high range of illegal shots. So there's some really high graphs as well. I've got quite a few. What did you learn by looking at this specific set of data, legal versus illegal shots?
Yeah, I mean, one of the many things that you can compare using our data set was, as you say, the legal versus the unlegal. Well, yeah, the legal and illegal. What I think I learned most is there isn't a one-to-one of if you take a lot of legal shots, you're going to take a lot of illegal shots. As you can see, Byron took less illegal shots than Hoy, who took less shots in total. So it's not always the same. But it is interesting to see that if you were to look into these players, some of these players that have more illegal shots tend to be the ones that have more casualties. They take more team balls out of the zone. Like, for example, if you see in that graph that at the bottom with the pie chart, Byron was unluckily for him, he ended up taking 19% of all of the balls that were team casualties, as in team balls out, were by Byron. So yeah, just those little things where you can be like, oh, Ardit was a very accurate player. He tends to have less illegal shots than this person, or it's all interesting to see to me.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And specifically looking at it, yeah, Byron has drawn the most of those. But the term casualties is a new one because we didn't mention it in the last video. So could you explain everything that that word and term encompasses?
Yeah, see, this casualties is kind of again, I like to use a lot of terms from gaming and stuff. It's like within gaming, a team casualty, or you could do it even in football with like an own goal. It's essentially like the tracking of stuff that you've done that has directly negatively impacted your team. And I've tracked this through team balls out, but you could also do it by the opponent's balls in as well, because that negatively affects your score as well. But that's just one thing I threw together there.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me because I think Byron's stat is almost skewed a little bit just because he also ended up taking some of the most shots in the entire tournament. So
Yeah.
it naturally makes sense as to why. And that reflects on the other end as well. This lovely chart showing off his high percentage, well, combined with Hoy, of really good shots, both on the Wet Bandit. So did this give you any further insights looking at good shots compared to casualties?
Yeah, I mean, it is like you say, you've not looked at this before, and you can kind of see that kind of trend together with the two. It does give a good idea to compare things like that, because although we know that, as we say, Byron's taken the most casualties, it is in comparison. If I was to do it with compared to the amount of total shots, it might not be the same. You might be able to look at it and say, oh, actually, compared to the amount of shots they've completely done, Chris took the most casualties or something. That is something that we can go further into detail for and look at the analysis of.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think towards the end of the video, we'll go back and speak to Hoy, who obviously built this, the original documents that helped set the foundations. And we'll speak to Hoy again at the end of the video to find out what he thinks, seeing all of this put into action and into graphics, because the initial build and you're making all of the sets and then seeing it all come together in graphics like what you've made, Alex, it's going to be brilliant to explore and hear from him. But before we go back to Hoy, we're going to be speaking to Ardit, who has been working in Tableau on this fantastic analysis document. Again, it's also very visually striking with some lovely graphics. I mean, both of you have put together some lovely visuals here for Alex and for Ardit. But Ardit, before we go into what you've built for us, can you just remind the viewers a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi Max. So for me, I'm still working in IT, unlike Alex and Hoy. And this is more of a passion project for me, just trying to figure out ins and outs of Tableau.
Lovely. So let's just start diving into what you've made, because we get to play around with this document. It's not just something where it's sort of statically visual. You get to work with this. So tell me about your working with Tableau, because I've never heard of this before, and how it's applied to your working on this tournament.
So Tableau is just a visualization software where you can put in all sorts of data sources. What I've done is I wanted to see or make something much more interactive where viewers are able to open it publicly and mess around with the settings. And for example, you can click on the different team logos to see the different team statistics. You can see Team Alice's stats over time. You can click on other teams as well just to see their stats as well. And if we talk about that first graph, we can just see how players have improved, whether their accuracy went up over time or whether it actually slowly went down. As you can see from group stage game 3 and group stage game 4, that actually went a bit down, but again slowly improved over time. You can also mess around below that with filtering by different stages, so you can remove group stages and playoffs and just have group stages. For example, it should take a second to update, and you can see players' stats that way. Below that, you can see how many good shots they've taken, how many neutral shots, and you can filter by any stage and just see how each team compares against each other. There'll be more in depth further in once it's fully completed, but basically right now it's a skeleton of a visualization to get myself started on seeing how everyone did.
Yeah, this is fantastic, and it really shows at the different stages how people change their game. I mean, Anki had, who's this yellow line here for Daddy's Clackers, had a really sort of good time up until the last 2 games of the group stage, and I think this tells a really good story of a team like Daddy's Clackers, because it was around game 3 where I think they secured their safety. Like they couldn't get relegated out of the group stage, and knowing that they were safe maybe led to that dip in form because they didn't need to worry about qualifying anymore. So that's really, just through your graph audit, I can already start to paint a picture, because for those of you who've seen the Vanguard Invitational, it was a 2-part series where there was a group stage, well, there was a table, a league table where everyone played each other, and then a team was eliminated and everyone else went through to a knockout format. And that's the bit that Ardit's got here at the end, with the playoffs that Daddy's Clackers played a game in. And then if you look at a team like mine, Maximum Impact, where we made it all the way to the grand finals, we've got even more statistics for that. So Ardit, how difficult was this to do, given that teams all had different amounts of games? My team had 3 players, but for only half of the tournament. How difficult was this?
So in its own right, it was quite a bit difficult as I'm so new to Tableau. So it's quite of a learning curve, trying to build all the interactive elements. So trying to account for the level of detail on different columns, different entries, like the team, the players, the shots, the chronology of the games from group stage 1 to 5, playoffs to grand finals. Luckily though, because of how Hoy set up the data and then how I transcribed it into one file, it made it quite easy doing it by ones and zeros to sum up everything. And then again, the complexity comes from building it in an interactive sense, where you can click on stuff and change it for different teams and different values.
And Ardit, is there a specific team in here, once you visualized it all, or a specific player that had an interesting graph or journey that you think doing the data visualization showed that you wanted to talk about at all?
I think for you, Max, there you go, for you. For example, compared to everyone else, you stayed well above your first teammate, Sam's, as in terms of accuracy. While a lot of the other teams always stayed near each other, which I wanted to explore later on with some other graphs I create. As you can see, it's always close to each other, and that comes to like hypothesis I had, where when players had neutral shots, trying to recover each other's shots led to lower accuracy altogether. So everyone had very similar accuracies compared to each other, except for your own shots. On top of that, you took a lot of attack shots, which I wanted to also explore, but your accuracy did not falter too much. So again, attack shots is not something I've put a graph in yet for, but from my own look into the data, I just wanted to see how people who took a lot of attacks, how that compared to their accuracy. So I think in general, you were a good player, but then if we go to the next table down below, there's more that I wanted to talk about.
Yes, we're going to get onto that in just a second. I just wanted to reflect quickly on this because I completely agree with you. It's very interesting how far ahead I stayed. I think Sam played very safe shots, and I was always kind of on the aggressive, which this shows. And then on the opposite end, the other team that qualified for the final was the Wet Bandits, and it was Hoy and Byron. And Ardit, this is an amazing graph because of the synergy between the two of them. They were nearly identical the whole way through.
We see Hoy generally played in a better accuracy than his teammate Byron, and I wanted to explore that as well, just to see why that was in terms of neutral shots and so forth.
Absolutely. So we'll just head down to the next document that you've got here. So this is your second graph, and this looks quite different. So what am I looking at?
So what you're looking at is for each team, where you can interact with it on the right side, you'll see the amount of shots they took for each frame. Again, I'll change the formatting over time. Very skeleton of a graph. It just shows progression through each frame that they played through each game. And you can see the frames that they won and the frames that they've lost. And we can focus on your team, Max, which is as a continuation to talking about you as a player, as you can see, you've won quite a few frames, and you can see that a lot of those frame wins were actually done with very little shots, suggesting that potentially your opponents made mistakes very early on. So while you played an amazing game statistically as a player, it seems that your team was also lucky, which is again a good factor to have as a team.
Let's take a look at a team that I think was the most unlucky in the tournament, which was Alice, because I think they played some really, really good games, but it did not reflect in their points.
Yeah, you can see a lot of their wins were very tight. A lot of them came all the way to the length of one frame just before draw conditions. They won no frames on a draw condition, but a lot of their frames came all the way to the last shot, suggesting that their opponent barely lost. Well, if you filter by lost frames, you can see they lost quite a few frames where they made mistakes early on. 2 shots, 3 shots, 4 shots, and they made mistakes quite early on and ended up losing all their draw conditions in those frames you see above the pink line. So again, such a very unlucky team. They've had a lot of close games that dragged all the way to 7 shots, then losing on the last shot, which is very unlucky, either by point or by illegal shot.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is easily the starkest contrast comparing Alice to my team, because I believe we did have a very lucky run going all the way through, and we only really got to express our quality when we made it to the knockouts, because we did get lucky. Whereas, as you say, Alice had a very tough time. So, yeah, it's really nice to see that visually. And I know, Ardit, that you've got a lot more you want to do with this, and for those of you watching, for those of you who love the data of this tournament, there will be a part 3 where Ardit will expand on this that you see here. So Ardit, do you want to just tease a little bit of what's to come?
100%. So what I want to do is compare how players contrast in terms of accuracy. For example, why was it that players stayed close to their teammates, which is seeing how many shots they took 2 balls in at a time and had a good shot, which suggests that they had high accuracy but also had higher net scoring. On top of that, I want to see who actually was a better player, irregardless of their team, by looking at how they attacked and whether that impacted their accuracy score, and just some more simple charts and pie charts, just to get a foundation of everything that the data could potentially show.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming through all of that, Ardit. I can't wait to see the next part, because there's already so much that you can interact with, and as Ardit said, we want to try and make this available for people who watch through the tournament. So taking everything and visualizing it is brilliant. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Ardit, before we go back to Hoy?
That should be it, but yeah, thank you again for having me on, and yeah, that's it for me.
No worries. Well, thank you, Ardit. And Hoy, the reason I wanted to bring you back in here is, what is it like for you to see this all brought to life? Because I know you've done a lot of statistic projects and data. You've done this a long time and you've built this. What does it mean to you to see all of this come to life in the graphics that both Ardit here and Alex has presented here for you today?
Oh, it's wonderful. Honestly, what Alex and Ardit have created are amazing so far. It is only early stages, so there's more to come, but so far what they have made is incredible. It's great to see all this time that we've invested into building these, capturing their data and everything, see it come to fruition. It's all been building up to create these sort of dashboards that we've been wanting to show off everything that has happened throughout the Vanguard Invitational.
Thank you, Hoy. Yeah, the Vanguard Invitational was such a huge tournament, and as a result gives so much room for data, with having a group stage, a knockout stage, teams with multiple players, and a team that gained a player. As we're seeing on Alex's graphic here, my favourite thing is over 1,000 shots in a tournament that lasted 2 days is incredible. So I look forward to see what else we're going to be able to do with all the statistics. So thank you for that, Hoy. Is there anything else you wanted to add before we close, Hoy?
I think that's it. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure working on this. It's been a lot of good fun.
Lovely, thank you, Hoy. And just to obviously close as well, as we haven't had a final word from our good friend Alex, who made the graphic that we're looking at right here. So, Alex, what does it mean to you to see, this graphic evolving and what art it's been able to do as well? What's it been like from your perspective?
It has been a really good project overall. I think the graphics and seeing that the actual product, as Hoy said, is really good to see. I think just in general, it's been really interesting to think, problem solve our way around all these problems that we've come up, and yeah, especially audits data, seeing the different filters that you could look through each different player's stats, and that's really cool to see. And as a fan of line ball, it's something that I'm glad is out there in the world.
Lovely. Well, thank you for that, Alex. And for those of you who want even more Alex, we recently played some games of Line Ball on the channel. So if you go back to the pre-season evolutions videos, which will be on the channel from just a couple of weeks ago, you can see Alex and I doing battle on the Line Ball table once again. So thank you so much for Alex for joining us, Ardit as well, and Hoy for their amazing work. Without the three of them, this doesn't happen. They've brought this to life. And if you're watching this and you're working within the world of sports statistics, data analysis in general, and you want to talk to any of the three fine gentlemen from today's video, I will leave their LinkedIns in the description. You can go over there, drop them a message, have a chat, whether about line ball, things you're working on. And if you leave any questions on the comments of this video, they will get back to you as well, as we appreciate this is a lot of information to take in. There's lots to talk about, and we're just really excited to share it all with you. So thank you for watching the last part that we did of this. The previous video had some great support. Thank you for watching today's episode, and stay tuned for a part 3 where we're going to take what Ardit worked on and he's going to expand that and then come back to the channel and see what else he's learned about our very first line ball tournament. So thank you all so much for watching, everyone. My name's Max Barrett, the creator of Line Ball Pool, and we'll see you next Tuesday at 6 PM for another Line Ball video. Thank you and good night.